Okay, here we go. Welcome back, Year 7, to a new term of historical investigating. I know it's going to be a bit different this term for you, but hopefully we can make it very engaging and fun just in an online way. All right. Okay, so what I'm going to cover today in this video is just a brief um, overview of what we've covered so far, what the plan is for term 2 and what you need to do to make sure you're ready for this term. Okay, what have we covered so far? We've looked at the physical features of ancient Egypt. So that is the geography, where the civilization developed and why they developed there. We've looked at roles of key groups, especially the pharaoh, and how that social hierarchy was structured. We've looked at the influence of law and religion on the everyday lives of the Egyptians. As well as that, we touched on a fair bit of death and funerary customs during the Tut bus visit, but also you would have touched on that briefly in your booklet. Other than that, you would have covered the role of a significant individual in your assessment task. So we've done a fair bit so far. What the plan is for this term is, in week 1, we're going to look at contact and conflict with other societies. So we're going to start that today. And we're looking at the legacy of ancient Egypt. So how has it been remembered? And what have we learnt from it? What we've got planned after that is from week 2 onwards, we're starting our unit on ancient China, and there'll be a source test based on the work from ancient China sometime in weeks 4 or 5, depending on what class you're in. That information will come out later, so hold on tight and we'll get that to you soon. Don't stress about it yet though. So what you need to do, keep all of your work safe from last term. So you will need what you've covered in the assessment, so just make sure you hold on to that work. Keep up to date with your history work, make sure it goes into your book, and check the hub regularly for updates. Okay, contact and conflict with other peoples. What this little symbol is down the bottom here, the little pen and paper, that means you need to write this in your book. So this is the title. You can do a title page on wait, hold on, no, wrong topic. You just need to write this as the title. Let's keep going. So, contact. Why do we trade with other civilizations or other peoples? So, trade is the exchange of doesn't have to just be goods or items. It can be trading knowledge, trading skills. So, it's important for us to expand our connections, making friends, helps us obtain things we don't have or resources that we don't have or can't grow in specific regions. It boosts jobs, it helps countries that need things, it improves the economy through exchanging, and ultimately it improves our lives because everybody is diverse and lots of different areas it's about making things diverse, really. So, why did the ancient Egyptians trade? Well, pretty much the same reasons. They used trade to create alliances, so friendships or supportive friendships. They would make friends with other places as well, boost the local economy, get resources they didn't have or couldn't grow in their specific region, or they would learn from other places to make their lives better. So an example of that is the Egyptians traded the skill or knowledge of how to create paper. So the papyrus method that you guys would have touched on during the Tut bus, that skill was traded with people from across the Mediterranean, and that's how paper became so worldwide, because the Egyptians traded that skill, where other societies may have traded goods or services that the Egyptians couldn't have had access to. So, what is trade? You probably have heard these words before: imports and exports. So don't worry that the map is Italy, it's just an example. So imagine that you're living in Italy and you need something imported. So that means goods that have been brought into the country. So the example that's given is wine brought into Britain from France. So the little ship's bringing something in. Exports are goods sold out of a country. So cars made in Britain and sold to Spain. There we go. Look at the little ship. Okay, so what you need to do now is the little task down the bottom there is I want you to write a sentence that uses these words in the sentence. There we go. Trade, import, and export. So I want you to come up with a little paragraph or so that tells me what trade, import and exports are in the same sentence. Okay. What you need to do now is pause this video and write this information down in your book. I know it seems like a lot, but there's not that much writing to do. So you need to pause the video now and write. All right. I'm just going to keep going though. Also, I forgot to say, if we go back, you needed to get this one down in your book too before the writing of this part. Okay. So what this paragraph of words says is what the Egyptian traded. So they had some pretty unique items, and it also talks about how they would go about selling their items. So the Egyptians weren't really nomadic, which means they didn't really travel into other lands. What they would do is they would sail down to the end of the Nile and they would meet with other merchants, so people that would sell things off in other civilizations. So that was sort of like a port where they would meet up, exchange, and then the Egyptians would go back up the Nile and everybody else would go into the Mediterranean. So this is a really good illustration of things that different areas sold in the ancient world. So there was a lot of trade that went on in these times, and water was really the key connector to all these countries. So you can see there that the Egyptians had down the bottom, there was grain, paper, wild animals, dates, dyes and figs. So they were things that generally people, say if you lived in France, couldn't get access to. So they might trade pottery or metals for these certain items. So they didn't really trade money. They didn't really have an economy, but they would trade items. So what you need to do now is answer these 3 questions in your book. I want you to define the terms import and export, so you should be able to do that from the previous slide. Previous slides, sorry. From the previous picture, I want you to list 2 exports of ancient Egypt. So exports meaning, you should know, look it up from the previous slide. And then part C, I want you to explain how 2 imports may be used from the Egyptians by the Egyptians once they were imported. So say the Egyptians imported, wine from Spain. What would they use that wine for? Or what would they use lead for? Or soap or timber? So choose 2 examples and tell me what you think the Egyptians would use that for. And that is the work for this lesson. I'm going to continue to put these videos up on YouTube and share the links, so make sure that you're keeping up to date with the hub. If you've got any questions, I'm going to do a Zoom after this, so you can ask me any questions. We can share our answers together too. I hope this has been successful, and I look forward to talking to you all soon.